Welcome. I'm Rebecca Kordecki, and you're listening to the Get Lifted Show. And today I think we're going to talk about, I know we're going to talk about the power of the mind, the power of our thoughts, and how we can use this power to transform our lives. You know, our mind and our mental state is so important, whether it's related to fitness, a fitness goal that you want to go after, or a diet goal, and obviously in your professional life, your career, even in relationship, the status and state of your mind is critical. We're going to talk about, using affirmations, positive thinking, and also not only those, but also visualization, which, many professional athletes for years have sworn by the power of visualization, like Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and obviously the great Muhammad Ali. He used it throughout his career, and he had his famous affirmation, "I am the greatest," and he was. So it works, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And my guest today is someone who knows about using the power of his own mind to overcome a lot of adversity and to turn his own life around. I'll let him share his story when he joins us. But today, Logan Piet, founder of 22 Days, joins us. His mission is to empower all his clients to find their own superhero. And he does this through his life coaching skills. He's a certified nutritionist and personal trainer. His story is truly intriguing. Welcome, Logan. Thank you so much for joining us. I love the name of your company, 22 Days, and we'll get into that in a second. And I absolutely love your tagline, "Empower your own superhero within." I think it's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, I kind of wanted to jump right in and talk a little bit about your childhood and, some of the challenges that you faced, and you mentioned on your in your bio you grew up a Jehovah's Witness, so I want to hear some of that and how that impacted you. So go ahead and give us a little background.
Okay, great. Well, I first want to thank you for having me on your show.
My pleasure.
I love what you do.
Thank you.
I would never change my childhood or my life for anything, for that matter, even through the ups and downs. Coming through a childhood of being a very religious person, per se, from the ages of when I was born until I was 16, I followed, the Jehovah's Witness pattern, and literally, it cultivated my life into an upbringing of a lot of love, but, of course, a lot of holdbacks of what I was able to do. And, I'm always a thinking type of person. I was diagnosed young at the age of 10 with attention deficit disorder. So I was one of those daydreamers looking out the window in school, and as a result, my grades, pretty much suffered. I was a C student, and the religious aspect, of course, didn't help at all there either, because I was constantly just scanning the horizon, thinking of things, wondering what I was going to do the next minute after the next minute. So. Interesting childhood.
Yeah, can I jump in for a sec? Because we all know, we've heard of Jehovah's Witness, but I'm not up to speed on exactly like what they can and can't do. I know there's a lot of restrictions. So share with us a little bit of what that life is like, or what they believe and allow,
Sure.
etc.
Of course, growing up in school, I got made fun of quite a bit. I wasn't able to celebrate any of the birthday parties, the Christmas parties, because Jehovah's Witnesses follow Bible principles to a T, which means that they don't, of course, again, they don't follow and celebrate the holiday customs, the birthday customs. Couldn't pledge allegiance to the flag because you're kind of you're segregated from the government, so to speak. You follow what the government says, but you don't follow what the government says, so to speak.
Right.
So I was kind of an outcast when I was growing up, and, it did affect me to a major degree. Now in my adulthood, I'm trying to work on reprogramming myself to get myself out of that situation.
Well, that's, it sounds challenging. I mean, just even hearing that, especially when, I'm sure that your group of friends in school, or maybe you weren't fortunate enough to have a few friends, but if you did, it must have been hard to see them celebrating, even just Christmas alone. I mean, to be a kid not be able to celebrate the holidays is not a great thing.
No, certainly. I mean, I'm more used to not celebrating the holidays. I mean, I'm 41. I turned 42 in February, and it's kind of abnormal for me to partake in the holiday, holiday festivities. So, it's something to get accustomed to change things over.
Right. Well, that's all about, thank God for what you do today, because you're able to work on, like you said, reprogramming your mental tapes that you play in your head or the messages that you were growing up, that you were given as you grew up, right? So that's the good news.
that is the good news. That is for sure.
So tell us then, so in your teens, I read also that you left home and went to live with a friend of yours. Tell us about that time and then the transition into your early 20s.
Yeah, I left home when I was, a few times. I think when I was 15, and then I came back until I was 17. Couch surfed, as they call it, back east. I was fortunate enough to have some friends in high school that would take me in, and their parents were kind of just like that. So that was kind of nice. But, I learned a lot of things the hard way. I was that know-it-all 15, 16-year-old kid. But I rebelled from, how I was raised. I had enough of it, the religious aspect. I kind of just had enough of it, and I just wanted out. So at the age of 16, when I actually first started doing bodybuilding, I started becoming a sports fanatic. I got into all sorts of school sports, and I started just playing as much as I could, a lot of basketball. Then I got into the weight training. But I was a good kid. I would say I was a good kid. I did dibble and dabble in various different things that kids would do, but overall, I think, again, the religious background kept me from going crazy as some of the kids did, So a double-edged sword, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And from there, you said you served in the Air Force, which, thank you for your service, by the way, but you spent some years there, and so then what happened when you got out of the Air Force? I read, and it sounds like your life kind of was a lot of bouncing around from job to job and a couple of divorces and just, sort of struggling.
Yeah, definitely. If I could write a movie on my book, it would definitely be entertaining, that's for sure. The military was Desert Storm in 1992 through 95. I went out and served in reserves, and I got out of there. And, of course, I did jump around from job to job. As a matter of fact, to digress a little bit, when I got in the military, I got married at the age of 19, and I jumped right into the marriage without even knowing the person. That was obviously a big mistake. That lasted only a year, and it just really followed the pattern of how my life was. I was always a person that just lived from day to day vicariously, going around searching and seeking out the bigger and better things to make myself happy. And it was how my mind was. My mind was, that ADD type of person where, following one thing and then dropping that, moving on to the next. And that's how it was for me, and that's why I went through all these jobs and the 2 divorces and what have you, because I just couldn't find out what made me happy. Other than those a few things, of course, working out has been my mainstay, but,
Yeah, I get that. I get that feeling. For me, working out was the same. It was kind of a savior of sorts, finding fitness when I did in my life. So I can completely relate to that. You also mentioned that you dealt with an addiction while you were kind of struggling with all this. Can I ask any details about that, or what?
Absolutely. I don't hide behind any of my detailed life in the past. I think it empowers somebody to really be honest and open with what they've had occur in their lives. And a lot of people, most people that I come across, can relate to that. And when you're honest with them, I think they have a more sense of a trust. So I've been really open and honest on my website, and I explained, not in grave detail, but of course detailed enough. And the addiction aspect was one of them. I was never a big drinker, but I ended up getting into cocaine, and I was a functioning addict, if you will, for probably a year or better. And it wasn't until certain circumstances happened that I had to stop that, but it did definitely take over my life, and I became somebody that I really didn't know who I was. I was able to hide it from my family and friends. Nobody really knew, because the gym, as you had mentioned, Rebecca, the savior. Yeah. If it wasn't been for the gym, I think I may have gone into, a much deeper
downward spiral.
For sure. Yeah. So the gym has been saving my life for the majority of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. No, here to working out and fitness, and it's like once you kind of grab onto that idea of wanting to take care of yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, and all that, it takes a lot to pull it away from you, I would say. I mean, because I've struggled with things in my early years as well, and now that I live the life that I lead for the last 20 plus years, it'd take a lot to throw me off at this point. So I get that. I think we're about to take a break, but when we come back, I know that you hit a bottom of sorts and spent some time away. So we will talk about that when we return with Logan Piet.
You're listening to HealthyLife.net, the radio network that brings positive talk with positive change to make your world a little better.
I'm Rebecca Kordecki. You're listening to the Get Lifted Show, and we're talking with Logan Piet of 22 Days. Before the break, Logan, we were talking about, dealing with life's challenges and some of the, adversity that you dealt with growing up, and then, getting into drug addiction and life really just, tossing you around a bit. But I think it tossed you around even more with the next chapter that happened to you. You were incarcerated for a conspiracy to commit real estate wire fraud. And, wow, tell me about that, and tell me about your time away. I mean, how'd that happen?
That's kind of when it all came to a head. I was doing real estate for about 6 years, and I got involved in a real estate scandal. And, ignorance led to greed, and, of course, one thing led to another, and then there were 7 of us that got indicted in 2008, and it was really not just the indictment. I mean, literally, when they say it rains, it pours. This was the story, because I had lost my house. I had about $100,000 taken from me, stolen. I had finalized a relationship over 4 years, which I was engaged, and then, of course, the indictment came down the line in 2008. So it was a huge turning point for me, and it was like, what else can come at me? So at that point, I was on what they call pretrial, which is you're basically out until you're being sentenced. So I had gone from the Bay Area. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I had moved back to Los Angeles, and I started to do the health and wellness, and just never really kind of let it enter into my mind. I just kept strong, not knowing what the turnout would be. But it ended up turning out I ended up having a 24-month sentence, and it was the greatest experience of my life. And I don't wish it upon anybody, Rebecca, but I can say that it really had me start to live my life, because I found this motto which I wanted to share, and it's very powerful, and it's the one I really live by, and it goes like this. It says, before someone really lives, they have to die inside. It's something only the privileged get to experience. And I love that motto, because when I say that to everybody listening, at first glance, and when I said that to people, they're like, oh, yeah, you must have really died in prison. And I'm like, no, actually, the way I relate it to my life is I was dying the entire time of my life before I went into prison. I didn't even know it. I was just running around life, not knowing exactly where I was going, what I was doing. I had no purpose in life, no drive in life. And I literally woke up and I started to live when I went away. So that incarceration, out of the 24 months, I served 18. But out of that 18 months, I learned how to meditate for 30 minutes straight. I read over 100 books on self-help, and I was just fascinated by the psychological aspect of the human body and the mind connection. Of course, being in health and wellness my entire life, I was always fascinated by what the mirror said, the internal part of it, but I'd never gone into the psychological aspect. So in 2008, before I got indicted, I actually watched The Secret, the movie The Secret, for the first time, well-known DVD, and people have seen it.
We talked about it, actually.
That's what really got me going, and then I wanted to know Rhonda Burns, who authored that movie and his book. I wanted to know what she found out, so I started to dig a little deeper, and I just started getting all these books sent to me in prison, and that was my passion, was reading books. So from 9 p.m. when lockdown came in, I was stucking my nose in the book for 9 to 2 a.m., and that was my schedule. So it was a very enlightening experience. You would think just the opposite would be.
Yeah, you would. And, funny enough, I opened the show with mentioning The Secret and talking about, the movement of law of attraction and how, the power of the mind is really, it's been around forever, positive thinking, since, 1902, As Man Thinketh. I mean, was one of the first books, but that was really received, by the public. But so we'll talk more about that. But I want to talk a little bit about what your day-to-day life was like in prison, because I think I read that you started to have groups or hold talks with other prison mates. What was that like, and how did that come about?
Yeah, well, for the first year I was at I was waiting to get sentenced, so I was at a transit center. It was actually people going from one prison to another. So basically most people that were there were only there for a week or less, and I was one of the few that were there for a long period of time. I was there for, a year. And that's when I did all my research, my studying, my meditation, my mental visualization. I learned how to do affirmations, and I proved that they work, which was amazing. And then when I transferred out of there and went to outside of Bakersfield, California, I was at a federal camp, and it was there that I started a group of people that were, that wanted to learn about the mind. And I head up that group, and I would always just take pieces of the books that I would read, and I would go over and summarize them with the people that I was teaching in there. And we had a really good group of guys. I mean, there was some good people in there that really wanted to get better on the psychological aspect of their lives. And, we used a lot of tools that we needed to, but I kind of was the head up of that. And it just kind of came in where people were like, man, you're really good at this. And I loved it. I just couldn't get enough. And so, the motivational aspect came in, and the teaching aspect came in, and the writing aspect came in. So it all just came in together really nicely. And I'm one to trust the flow of life.
Right.
And I think when somebody does that, and there's no, you're not swimming upstream, you're just casually going downstream, and whatever comes your way, comes your way.
Yeah, going with the flow, right?
It's our thinking that makes it so. Nothing's really good or bad. It's our thinking that makes it so.
Right.
So.
So when you got out then, you started your company. Is that the 22days.com? Is that when you created that idea or concept, or?
Yes, actually I did. It's one of my proud pieces I've created. And the notion behind that is, they say it takes 21 days to establish a habit, give or take. So the day 22 is the day of celebration. So I've pretty much used that, and if the slogan's empower the superhero within you, I believe everybody walking this planet is indeed a superhero. You don't need a cape or a mask or fight crime to become a superhero. We all have psychic abilities, and most people walking this earth do not even tap into them. They become stale and stagnant, and they never even utilize them, and I think it's a shame. So I'm here to really bring that back. I know you are as well. You're an advocate of the same things that I probably have read or I talked about. So it's a great thing.
Absolutely. So you, how did you, so you got out, and then how did you establish yourself in the business, though? I mean, going away for, almost 2 years to prison is kind of a hard thing to overcome and get people to trust you and say, hey, look, I really know, I know this information and I can share it with you. But how did you build their trust and get clients to come to you? Tell me about that.
Good question. Well, I mainly work on word of mouth, and the people that I do work with, the clients that I've had in the past, I have great testimonials. And, I gave a lot of coaching away for free. For the first year, maybe even longer, I made $0 at the information I was giving out. And I would always tell everybody, and I say it to this day, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just giving you suggestions and considerations for you to take and think about it logically, and then make a decision based upon what your perceptions are. And, of course, people understanding my story and not hiding behind anything and being very open and honest, that really was a trusting factor. You would think it'd just be the opposite. But people relate to the drug addiction. People relate to the prison aspect. Maybe they've never gone, but it's like, wow, you did that? And I was like, yeah, and I overcame it. So you can't tell me that there's no adversity that can come into your life that you can't overcome. That's a pretty big one. When your freedom gets taken away, you really step back and say to yourself, what am I doing? You got to really take a step back and do that.
Well, I think
people relate to that.
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty profound that you, the way you say that when you went away, you realized you'd been dying the whole time outside of prison, and for, when you were in prison, it's the first time you started to live. So that's pretty profound.
Yeah. I claim, for 9/10 of my life, Rebecca, I've lived my life the wrong way. And it's only about 1/10 of my life currently that I've been doing my life the right way, that I consider the right way, and it feels amazing. Just with those changes, man.
That's great.
It's just amazing.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to give away some tips today on how, people out there listening can do some mental exercises or a mental workout, if you will, of how they can start to improve their own, mindsets. And so how do you help clients who have habits that they want to change? That's the first thing. Like, what do you think are some good tips?
Well, it's all in the habits, isn't it, Rebecca?
Absolutely.
We're all programmed machines, and it started from the very time you came out of your mother's womb up till now. I mean, we've been programming ourselves our entire lives. And all it is just paradigms, which is a multitude of habits. Now, one of my favorite mentors out there is Bob Proctor. The guy, to me, is the most amazing man out there, and, I literally have watched every episode he has pretty much over and over and over. And so literally, if anybody out there is looking to take a hold of their life, I would say find something that you enjoy, that's self-help, that you resonate with, and just watch it as much as you can or read it as much as you can. Because just like playing a guitar or playing a piano, at one lesson you're not going to be good, but if you play for a bit of time, you're going to become better and better. So it's with the practice. It's the practical application that really makes us efficient in life. Knowledge means nothing if you don't have the practical application.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, who else besides, I love Bob Proctor as well, but who else? One of my favorites is Louise Hay. I love, everything
That's who I started with.
Yeah, okay, great. Did you read You Can Heal Your Life, or what was
That was probably I think that was one of my first books that I did read, was You Can Heal Your Life, and she was somebody that I give so much credit to in my life. I did the mirror work. I remember lying in my bunk bed in prison behind a cell and doing the mirror work. And she was the one that inspired me to start reading more and more. Then I got into, the Bob Proctor and, Stuart Wilde and, Charles Haanel, which is my favorite author of all time. I mean, there's tons of people out there I could mention.
We'll talk some more about that. I want to get into some other mental exercises that can help shift negative thinking, and we'll talk about that when we get back in just a minute. You're listening to the Get Lifted Show. I'm Rebecca Kordecki, and we're talking with Logan Piet of 22 Days. We were just talking about, some of the things that you can do out there if you're listening and you really want to start to get mental mastery and, mastering the power of the mind. And there's so many books and videos and things you can read and look at to try to help improve it. But what are some actual practical exercises, Logan, that you use with clients and or just your own self in shifting negative thinking or removing limiting beliefs?
That's a great question. And I think that's where most people get stuck is, they start something and they never finish it. They say New Year's resolutions, 80% of them fail within the first 60 days. So, it's no wonder why people never stick with something. We want the fruit before the roots get ever developed in the ground, and that's pretty much a common thing. We want it right away. We have that instant gratification aspect of life. But there's so there needs to be some patience and faith with what you're going to do. And the first one I started out doing was affirmations. And, I was sick every month. When I went away, I literally got sick every month. I had a cold or I was sneezing or coughing or something. And then I found this book called The Master Key System, which I'd read 17 times. It's my favorite book. And in there was an affirmation that I literally memorized, and it became a part of my life. And I think the affirmation aspect is so powerful because we've all been doing affirmations our entire lives. And that little voice that never shuts up in the back of your head is continually starting to say affirmations over and over. So what we want to do is, or I train my clients to do is you have to have cues, and you have to first analyze your thoughts. Are you thinking negatively like most people? Statistics say that 70% of your thoughts are negative every single day. That doesn't give you much room for improvement. 30% is not a lot. So we have to analyze the thoughts first to see how we're thinking. And then we can pick up on the cues and really see what we're thinking over the course of the day. And once we establish that, then we start to work on some certain things. And when you analyze the thoughts, you'll see really where you're at, and you want to pick up on those cues. And at that moment of thinking negatively, you are in the mode to flip it into thinking something positive. Now, it's not going to be easy because you probably don't have a lot of practice at it, just like anything else. So you have to really practice at it, and that would be your cue. And I would always suggest to clients, work on one thing at one time. So if you're going to take on the affirmations, stick to one that works, that you like, memorize it, use it as much as you possibly can. I have a system I've developed called the mapping process, which actually utilizes the tri system, which is the affirmations, meditation, mental visualization. It's quite a bit of stuff. It's about an hour that you put into yourself every single day. On the mental side, I always say most people exercise their body, but few people exercise their mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, big aspect. Because really, it all starts and ends in the mind, right, Rebecca?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I love that. Talking about the affirmations and picking one and sticking with it, because it can be overwhelming. I mean, you start thinking, well, I have all these things I want to work on. I want to do affirmations. I want to do the visualization. I need to start to learn to meditate, and then it's so overwhelming that people freeze or they get paralyzed. So. Yeah, I agree that, pick one aspect that you want to start to hone in on or perfect. And, clients say to me all the time, for their training or for making, planning their meals and such forth, I just don't have the time. I don't know how to think. Well, schedule yourself. Schedule an appointment with yourself like you would a client or an account or, a visit to the doctor. Schedule it. And you schedule every morning the same time or every evening, whatever works best for you. Put it in your schedule, and it's an appointment. You can't miss it. So that'd be one thing I'd add to what you said, and I think that's great. What would you say is the most instrumental practice that you use daily to keep your own mental state empowered and uplifted? What's your favorite go-to?
Well, I think out of the three, meditation, affirmations, and mental visualization, I firmly believe that mental visualization is the king out of those three, or queen, if you will, because everything starts and ends in the mind, and we all start with a thought, the imagination. Everybody listening to the show is listening from a device, and that device was created out of someone's imagination. It just didn't come out of thin air. And that imagination led to a thought. That thought led to an engineering team to develop whatever it is, maybe listening to it on a phone or what have you. And so really, if you follow the pattern from start to finish, it always goes back to the mind. So when we all have the imagination, and really your mind is either an asset or it's a liability. So pick one and make it a stand to be as an asset.
Yeah, that's great.
So mental visualization to me is the top dog.
Right, and I mentioned at the beginning of the show too about how Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Muhammad Ali are famous for their affirmations or not affirmations, I'm sorry, visualizations that they claim helped keep their careers alive and kept them at the top of their games. Talk a little bit about what would be a process that you would guide someone through a visualization, how to do that, what does that look like?
That's a great question. Bob Proctor actually is the one I followed on this, and he says most people, if they had to write a movie on their life, they wouldn't even be the star in their own movie. They'd be an extra or maybe a walk-on. And really, it's kind of funny, but it's true. You want to become the star of your own movie. So I always tell people, how would your day be if it was a day that you really see yourself being at your full desire? And then, of course, the best thing to do is to write it down. Describe in great detail. How would you look? What would you be doing? What would you be wearing? How would you be acting? What kind of money would you be making? What kind of life would you fully live? And, of course, when you then write it down, it becomes detailed. And then when you do the mental visualization, your objective is to actually play that movie on the mental screen of your mind. I mean, we all go and spend $20 to go watch a movie for 2 hours, and we just open our eyes, and then, of course, the movie portrays through the eyes. What we want to do is close our eyes and play that movie, but it all starts with that objective and what is your mission statement? What is it you truly want in life? And then you create the story from there. But you have to think of it first and then write it down and look at that statement every single day over and over and over again. I usually use all my clients, I have them develop what's called a mission statement, and I simply use, Bruce Lee had a great one back in 1961, I think it was, and I just formulated mine from his. And I use all my clients to do the same thing as well. And about 6 sentences. That's it.
What is his? Do you have it handy or no?
I don't have it handy in there, but it basically says he's going to become the greatest martial artist of all time. He's going to make X amount of dollars in such and such a time. He's going to live the life he wants to live. And it was all in 6 sentences. So I've curtailed my own life in there, and I have my mission statement in my phone, which I read every single day. And, of course, now if you go and use Bob Proctor's, he goes by Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill says you do it in front of the mirror in the morning and at night, and you look into the eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul, and you want to look deep down within. That's where you get the actual effectiveness, because you want to get emotionally involved with your idea. If you don't get emotionally involved with it, the idea may just sit idle and never go anywhere. You got to you got to fall in love with your idea.
Yeah.
You really have to fall in love with it.
Right. I love it. That's great. Good tips for that. Let's talk a little bit about let's talk a little bit about your tips for keeping fit. Since you just mentioned you're turning 42 soon, you look amazing.
Thank you.
And clearly you've been at this a bit. I mean, you look like not a full bodybuilder, but a bodybuilder, yes, but not like the big bulky guys. So anyone out there, listening, he's not one of those big walking guys, but you've got like a very lean, chiseled body, and it's great. You work hard at it. So give us some of your top tips for staying in shape.
Great. Yeah, I mean, symmetry is really where it's at now, and I think, the fitness aspect is so important because if you're physically hurting or you're not liking yourself in the mirror, then you're not saying the right words, the affirmations come in. So the psychological plays in with the physical aspect, as we know. So, I've switched to pretty much a raw food intake diet now, and I educate myself and keep up and up on as much as I possibly can. I go to the gym for just an hour, maybe 3-4 times a week. I do 30 minutes of cardio and 30 minutes of weight training. My workouts are probably the easiest ever. And if you're just looking to stay in shape and tone up, getting into the gym and doing something is better than sitting at home and doing nothing. Right. And that's a start. And, of course, practice makes perfect. You get into the gym, you'll become more and more proficient the more times you go by watching things and watching people. Hopefully you're watching the right people do the right things.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of making that determination, being a commitment to completion, and sticking to your goal. Because we all take our health for granted, Rebecca. Every single one of us does. And I've had friends that have had triple bypass surgeries just out of the clear blue, and then they're forced to have to make a change in their lives, and it's usually not a pretty one.
Right.
And they got scars to show for it, and it's a mess. And, I mean, we age. We want to age gracefully.
Agreed. Well, we're going to talk more about some of that fitness stuff and diet stuff possibly, and we'll probably end with another bit about some mental exercises we can all do when we come right back. We are back. It's Rebecca Kordecki, and you're listening to the Get Lifted Show. We're talking with Logan from 22days.com, which is a website where he helps empower people find their own superhero within, and I just love that saying. That's great. So, Logan, before we left, we were just talking about staying fit and what it's like to go into the gym and keep yourself on top of your game, basically. And especially, being over 40, and I'm over 40, and I won't say how old, but I'm much over 40, and you're 42, or 41. It's important like that as you age to find a routine that you can, deal with for the rest of your life, and that it's a maintenance, it becomes maintenance. And like you said, a friend having a triple bypass, out of the blue, that's scary. But, it's kind of what the society where we're at right now with obesity and all the health issues, staying on top of your game is critical.
Very much so. I think it's our duty and our responsibility to be the best that we possibly can. And unfortunately, in this day and age, like you said, the obesity, I mean, it's an epidemic now. Hypothyroidism is an epidemic. And people really are just saying, they're throwing their hands up and saying, well, I'm just going to follow the leader. I believe you got to be a leader in the aspect of anything in life, and that includes the psychological and the physical. So, no one's going to go to the gym for you, and no one's going to make you think a certain way. It's up to you. It's your responsibility. I mean, I got on my parents. I visited my parents this past summer. They're retired now, and I went and flew out and seen them. And I watched their patterns, and they're so heavily developed with their own programming. And I kind of, I got upset with my mother because I said, I visited you on a pleasure trip, but the way you're eating and you're not exercising, it makes me mad, and I think you're being very selfish because you're not taking care of yourself. And then the next trip I may have to make may not be one that I really want to really encounter. So, everybody listening, I mean, really, you got to take it by, the strong and really make the determination of which way you want to go. I mean, it's an important thing to not take your health for granted because it's a heavy asset, because in order to think positively, you have to be physically fit, because I've learned that people that have ailments, physical ailments, they constantly are focusing on these physical ailments. I don't feel good. I'm in pain. My back hurts. My knee hurts. And, of course, you can't be thinking positive when you're thinking that whole negative aspect. You just can't.
No, absolutely.
It's essential.
Yeah, that's critical. The mind has to be right, and in order for the mind to be right, the body needs to be right, the health needs to be right. It's a circle, and it comes full circle when you take care of your health. You'll see that your mind is open to being positive, and then obviously you have to do the workout. You've got to work the mind. It's not just going to happen, like you said. It's constant, staying on top of it, an hour a day, even if it's 15 minutes a day, whatever it is. It has to be a habit, become a habit.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Rebecca. But I think in today's society, everybody's so apt to running out and trying to look good as much as they possibly can. And that doesn't come in the form of maybe not looking good in the mirror or within you. It's, I got to make more money. I got to buy the bigger boat or the house. And, but you're never going to take any of that stuff with you when you leave.
Right.
So the journey that you're on, you better make sure you enjoy having those nice things, because you can't enjoy it when you're sick. You can't enjoy it when you're not feeling well, or you're hurting, or your limbs hurt, or what have you. And again, it's your responsibility. Most people listening got family and friends, and those people care about you. And if you're not taking care of yourself, when you get sick and you're hurting, who's going to take care of you? Probably them. And you're really putting them out because they're having to take time out of their day because you didn't do your part. And I really, I don't sugarcoat anything, Rebecca, with all my clients. I let them know, hey, it's your responsibility. Step up to the plate and let's go, Quit hiding.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree with that. What would you say then, for people listening? Let's say someone is dealing with like a devastating illness or a chronic. For 1 year, I had a chronic neck pain, and it would just not go away. It was just every day, constant. And it, brought me down, and it was hard to overcome. It was hard to be on top of my game and feel good and see clients with a smile, although I rose to the occasion. But I was acting as if. But what would you say to people who are struggling with something like that, and they're trying to find their positive edge? They're trying to find that capacity to be positive and turn it around.
Well, that's a great question, and that's a tough one to answer, because I know what it feels like to be in pain. I've had my own ailments. I think all my limbs are screwed up from working out, rotator cuffs and knees. But it's a matter of correcting the problem on the physical level is something either your doctor's going to have to do to help you with, and then, of course, are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing the right things? Are you eating the right kinds of foods? Because, every 11 months we have a new us inside of us. All our cells are brand new. But what we build them with is determined by what we consume. And if you're eating a bunch of junk, you're not really helping yourself get along and fix the problem. You want the best building blocks possible to fix that ailment. And, of course, Tylenol and the aspirin and the Advil, they have all their places in medicine. And whatever kind of, prescription drugs your doctor has you on, they have their place in medicine. But I think they poison more people than they do good. And so, you do what your doctor says. I'm not a doctor to tell you otherwise, but you really literally you escape the pain by doing what you can, but you have to be taking care of yourself from what you're consuming. Hippocrates said, let thy food be thy medicine. And that really, if you look around in America, people are not doing that. They're doing just the opposite. So in order to become psychologically fit, you have to be physically fit. In order to be physically fit, you have to be psychologically fit. They go hand in hand.
Yes.
I call it brain, body, soul. It's all a connection. It's a complete connection.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more with that, for sure. So we touched on some of your favorite authors and or even like people that you would watch videos of, but just reiterate again some of your favorite. Give me some of your favorite books on mental mastery or power of thoughts. What would be some of your good favorite reads?
The Master Key System by Charles Haanel. I've read it 17 times, and I'm reading it once again. When you read a book again for the second time, it's not the information changed, something in you changed. So it's nice to read things over and over, and I'm a big advocate of the repetition aspect. So Master Key System is my absolutely favorite book. It was written in the early 1900s. I also like The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, one of my other top favorites. If you want to get into the physical aspect, The Healing Codes by Alexander Lloyd is a great book to look into. Of course, anything by Louise Hay. she's definitely a pioneer in the area. Emily Koo has a book on autosuggestion. If you want the best book on affirmations, check out his book, The Power of Autosuggestion. That's another great book as well. There's Phoebus Quimby's another great doctor that lived in Maine, and he learned how to heal people without any medicine whatsoever. These people are real. These people have done the work, and they've proven that these methods work. And again, knowing doesn't precede doing. So if you're just reading books and you're just, saying, oh, that's great to know, and you're not applying it, then you might as well not even pick up the book and read it.
Right.
You got to apply the information. Find with what works and stick with something, and plant those seeds and let them come to fruition.
Absolutely. Yay. Thank you for some of those. I'm actually going to pick up a couple of those books. I hadn't heard of a couple of the last ones you mentioned.
They're all on my website. All my
Yay.
books are on the website.
Okay,
yeah.
great. Now, speaking of website, how can people find you if they want to work with you or check out your information? Is that...
I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm all over the social media.
Okay.
At 22 Days, and it's 20 spelled out, and the number 2, and then Days, D-A-Y-S.
Okay.
So it's not just number 22.
Okay.
My radio show is called Brain, Body, Soul.
Okay.
And you can get me a hold of me on there.
All right, great.
My email is askforlogan@gmail. That's my normal, easy email to remember if you want to send me an email that way. You get a hold of me, and I do free consultations. So
that's fantastic.
Resume. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. So much good information and so many good ideas for keeping our minds sharp and the power of positive thoughts. Thank you so much for spending time with us, Logan.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.